At just 19, Diana Dors thought she had it all. Movie stardom, Hollywood at her feet, and a handsome new husband. She didn't know he would soon force her at gunpoint to sign away her fortune, secretly film her friends in compromising positions, and threaten to slit eyeballs of any man who looked at her. From forced casting couch deals to violent marriages, this is the heartbreaking story of how Britain's Marilyn Monroe lost everything. Diana Mary Fluck was born on October 23, 1931, in Swindon, England. Her birth was almost a tragedy. Both she and her mother, Winifred, nearly died during delivery. That moment left a deep mark on her mother, who spent the rest of Diana's childhood making up for it. She gave her daughter everything: beautiful clothes, dance lessons, and constant affection. Her father, Albert, worked as a railway clerk. He provided a steady income, but there was a complication. Diana's mother had been involved in an affair. When she announced her pregnancy, she admitted she wasn't sure if Albert or another man was the father. Despite this, Albert accepted Diana as his own, and the family carried on as if there was never any doubt. From the time she could walk, Diana was drawn to glamour. Her mother often took her to the cinema, where she became mesmerized by Hollywood stars like Lana Turner and Jean Harlow. She didn't just admire them, she wanted to be them. By the age of 3, she was telling anyone who would listen that she was going to be an actress. School was never a priority for her. She attended Selwood House, a small private school, but she didn't last long. She had little patience for lessons she didn't enjoy. In French class, she repeatedly clashed with her teacher, a Czech Jewish refugee. Her frustration boiled over, and the situation escalated until she was expelled. Her mother didn't seem too upset. A proper education was never the plan. Diana wasn't meant for a quiet, ordinary life. Instead of school books, she focused on performance. Her mother fueled her passion, paying for dance and drama lessons. Diana took every chance she could to be on stage. By 12, she was already passing as much older. She carried herself like a grown woman, mimicking the stars she idolized. During World War II, American soldiers were stationed in Swindon. They brought stories of Hollywood, tales of glitz, fame, and fortune. Diana soaked up every word. For her, Swindon felt small. She wanted more. At 14, she made her first big move. She applied to the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, LAMDA. She was too young, but she lied about her age and got in. It was a huge moment. She was the youngest student the Academy had ever accepted. Moving to London was a shock. She left behind her comfortable home and moved into a small room at the Earl's Court, YWCA. Her father sent her a weekly allowance of £2, but it wasn't enough. To survive, she started modeling. She posed for the London Camera Club, making 1 guinea per hour, which was decent money at the time. At Lambda, she quickly made an impression. She was talented, confident, and determined to stand out. In her first term, she signed with the Gordon Harbord Agency. Soon after, she won a bronze medal for elocution, presented by Peter Ustinov. The next term, she won silver with honors. Life in London wasn't easy. She was young, alone, and struggling to keep up with expenses. But she never let it shake her. Acting was her only plan. There was no backup. To support herself, she kept modeling. When necessary, she adjusted her age to secure better jobs. It wasn't entirely honest, but it worked. Her mature looks helped her pass as older, and that opened doors. She wasn't just posing for photographs. She took on small stage roles in plays like A Weekend in Paris and Death Takes a Holiday. Then, in 1946, she entered a beauty contest for Soldier magazine. She placed 3rd, but it was enough to get her noticed. More modeling jobs followed, along with connections to the film industry. Her first real break came in The Shop at Sly Corner, 1947. She was supposed to have a small, walk-on role, but casting director Eric Lapine Smith had seen her perform and decided she deserved more. The role grew into a speaking part, and she was paid £8 a day for 3 days of work. It wasn't much, but it was a start. That same year, she caught the attention of the Rank organization, which was known for shaping young talent. They signed her at just 15 and placed her in their Charm School, a program designed to train future stars. She hated it. The school focused more on appearances than acting, but it gave her exposure. By August 1947, newspapers were already calling her the Body. She was still a teenager, but she had people talking. Her rise in British cinema happened fast. In Holiday Camp, 1947, she stood out by jitterbugging with actor John Blythe, a moment that helped secure her role. Dancing with Crime, 1947, was filmed during one of the coldest winters on record, but she powered through, earning £10 a day for 15 days. Directors liked her energy, and audiences responded to her presence on screen. By 1948, she had roles in The Calendar, Good Time Girl, and even a small part in David Lean's Oliver Twist. Then came her big break. In 1949, she landed her first major role in Diamond City, a film set in South Africa. She played a saloon owner, a part originally meant for John Kent. When Kent turned it down, Dors got the chance to step up. She was only 17, but she carried the role like a seasoned actress. She was paid £30 a week and proved she could handle a leading part. The film didn't do well at the box office, but it didn't matter. It put her in the spotlight. Despite her growing fame, Rank struggled to find the right roles for her. By 1950, they let her go, claiming financial issues. She wasn't discouraged. She had already built a name for herself. She had the talent, the looks, and the determination to keep going. But the industry had other ideas. Directors kept casting her as the man-mad teenager. It started with Here Come the Huggets, 1948, and continued in Vote for Huggett, 1949. She was funny, and people loved her performances, but she wanted more. Critics saw her potential, but her glamorous image kept getting in the way. She knew she had to break free from the stereotype. By 1954, she made a decision. I'm picking and choosing my parts now. That doesn't mean I'm waiting for the perfect part, but I'm sick to death of being the sexy siren. Her time at the Rank organization's Charm School had given her a boost, but it had also limited her. The school, created by producer Sidney Box, trained young actors like Petula Clark and Christopher Lee. It gave her a platform, but it also put her in a box. They focused more on making her a star than helping her grow as an actress. When the school shut down in 1950, she took control of her career. She could have signed a 7-year contract with Rank, but she turned it down. She wanted freedom. It was a risky move, but it led to better opportunities. She took on more serious roles, including Yield to the Night, 1956, a film that finally let her prove her depth as an actress. Diana Dors was often called England's answer to Marilyn Monroe. At first glance, the comparison made sense. Both were blonde bombshells with undeniable screen presence. But beyond the surface, their careers and public images were very different. Marilyn Monroe was the picture of American glamour, often seen as soft-spoken and mysterious. Diana Dors had a sharper edge. She wasn't just a beauty, she had attitude, confidence, and a rebellious streak that made her stand out. In The Long Haul, 1957, she played a gangster's girlfriend who falls for an American veteran. The film had all the hallmarks of a crime thriller, but Dors brought something more, Her character wasn't just seductive. She was vulnerable, trapped in a dangerous life, but desperate for a way out. The film had all the hallmarks of a crime thriller, but Dors brought something more. Her character wasn't just seductive. She was vulnerable, trapped in a dangerous life, but desperate for a way out. She played similar roles in Tread Softly Stranger, 1958, and Passport to Shame, 1958, proving that she could handle complex characters just as well as any Hollywood star. One of her most important films was The Weak and the Wicked, 1954. It was a prison drama based on a novel by Joan Henry, a former inmate who wrote about the realities of life behind bars. At the time, stories about women in prison were rare, especially ones that focused on their struggles rather than sensationalizing their crimes. Dors played Betty, a young woman jailed for protecting her boyfriend. The role gave her a chance to show a different side of herself. She wasn't just playing a glamorous siren. She was portraying someone with real emotions and real struggles. The timing of the film made it even more significant. Just before filming, Dors had faced legal troubles of her own. In 1953, she was convicted of stealing alcohol from a friend's house. The scandal was all over the newspapers, and people started seeing her as a real-life bad girl. Instead of letting it hurt her career, she leaned into it. The role in The Weak and the Wicked felt authentic because, in some ways, she knew what it was like to be judged. The film was a hit in Britain, and it also reflected a shift in cinema. Audiences were starting to want more realism in their films. Stories about everyday struggles were becoming more popular. Over the next few years, British cinema would produce classics like Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, 1960, which captured the lives of working-class people in a way Hollywood rarely did. Dors had helped pave the way for that shift. She had proven that a blonde bombshell could do more than just look glamorous. She could bring real depth to the screen. Despite her success in Britain, Hollywood was a different story. In May 1956, she signed a contract with RKO to star alongside George Gobel in I Married a Woman. She left Southampton on the Queen Elizabeth, arrived in New York, and headed straight for Hollywood. Hollywood seemed eager to have her. In July, through her company Treasure Pictures, she signed a deal to make 3 more films with RKO. The first was The Unholy Wife with Rod Steiger. Her fee was $75,000. Each new film would add another $25,000. But it wasn't just business. Looking back, she wasn't impressed with The Unholy Wife. She said, "They tried getting me in the gas chamber again in Hollywood, but the film wasn't good. They edited it badly." More opportunities came her way. William Dozier of RKO announced she would star in Blonde's Preferred Gentleman with Eddie Fisher, but the project never happened. In August, she said she had signed a deal for a Bob Hope movie. That fell through as well. Another planned film, Potluck for Pomeroy, never made it past the announcement stage. In October, she appeared on The Bob Hope Show. The New York Times praised her performance. She displayed considerable stage presence. The gal can handle her lines. But by November, Dors was back in London. Meanwhile, Diana Dors thought she had found excitement when she married Dennis Hamilton. At first, he was charming and full of confidence. He made her feel wanted, chasing after her with grand gestures and relentless attention. But beneath the surface, he was dangerous. He was controlling, violent, and reckless with both money and power. Their marriage was not just a mistake. It was a disaster that nearly destroyed her career and left her in financial ruin. She was only 19 when she met him in May 1951. She was already a rising star in British cinema, but struggling with personal troubles. She had just gone through an abortion, and her boyfriend, Michael Caborn Waterfield, was in jail for fraud. Then came Dennis. He walked up to her and asked for a light, speaking with the kind of confidence that made him hard to ignore. He had a way of making her feel special. Every day, he sent her flowers. He pursued her with a kind of intensity that felt thrilling at first. Michael was still in the picture, but Dennis didn't care. The moment Michael was sent to jail for 2 weeks, Dennis made his move. He proposed, and within weeks, they were married. The wedding at Caxton Hall in Westminster was a disaster from the start. Diana's parents refused to attend because they disapproved. She was under 21, which meant she needed their signatures to marry, so she forged them. Someone tipped off the registrar, who confronted them on the day of the wedding. Dennis grabbed the man by the throat and threatened him until he agreed to officiate. Instead of being alarmed, Diana felt an odd sense of admiration. She later admitted that his criminal glamour excited her. From the moment they were married, Dennis took control of everything. He became her manager, her publicist, and the person who decided which roles she would take. He wanted money fast, so he focused on making her a sex symbol. He turned down a £100,000 contract with Rank Studios, worth over £2.6 million today, because it didn't fit his immediate plans. He pushed her toward high-paying but low-quality roles that made her famous, but not respected. He arranged provocative photo shoots, including a controversial set of semi-nude images marketed as Diana Dors in 3D. These sold well, but they also locked her into a shallow image. Even worse, there were rumors that Dennis used Diana to gain favors in Hollywood. Friends and biographers later revealed that he arranged for her to spend time with producers and executives in exchange for career opportunities. Meanwhile, Dennis spent money like it was endless. He bought luxury cars, expensive properties, and extravagant gifts without consulting Diana. He leased a Rolls-Royce in her name just to create headlines about her being Britain's youngest owner of the car. He hosted wild parties that kept them in the tabloids, but behind the scenes, their finances were falling apart. As time passed, Dennis became more unpredictable. His temper was violent. At a Hollywood party in 1956, someone pushed both him and Diana into a swimming pool as a joke. He climbed out, walked straight up to a photographer, and punched him in the face. The next day, the National Enquirer ran the headline, "Miss Dors, go home and take Mr. Dors with you." The parties he threw became infamous. Hidden two-way mirrors allowed guests to be filmed in secret. People were caught in compromising situations without knowing it. Some believed Diana was unaware of what was happening, but others weren't so sure. The rumors only made her reputation worse. Dennis was also dangerously jealous. When he found out Diana had an affair with comedian Bob Monkhouse, he lost control. He stormed into a club, pulled out a cutthroat razor, and screamed, "I'm going to slit your eyeballs!" Monkhouse barely escaped after kneeing Dennis in the groin and running for his life. By 1958, Diana had enough. She filed for divorce, but Dennis still found ways to control her. He had been handling all her finances, and after he left, she discovered the damage. He had run her company, Diana Dors Limited, into massive debt. At one point, he even forced her at gunpoint to sign over £100,000 worth of assets. With no money and no way to pay her lawyers, she made a difficult choice. She agreed to give News of the World a series of interviews. Over 12 weeks, she revealed the truth about her marriage. She talked about Dennis's control, the casting couch deals, and the dark parties they had hosted. The public was shocked. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury called her a wayward hussy. Diana had barely survived her marriage to Dennis Hamilton, but her story wasn't over. Her second marriage to Richard Dawson started with hope. By 1958, Diana had enough. She filed for divorce, but Dennis still found ways to control her. He had been handling all her finances, and after he left, she discovered the damage. He had run her company, Diana Dors Limited, into massive debt. At one point, he even forced her at gunpoint to sign over £100,000 worth of assets. With no money and no way to pay her lawyers, she made a difficult choice. She agreed to give News of the World a series of interviews. Over 12 weeks, she revealed the truth about her marriage. She talked about Dennis's control, the casting couch deals, and the dark parties they had hosted. The public was shocked. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury called her a wayward hussy. Diana had barely survived her marriage to Dennis Hamilton, but her story wasn't over. Her second marriage to Richard Dawson started with hope. They met on The Steve Allen Show in 1959 and felt an instant connection. A few months later, on April 12th, they married in New York. Richard was a British-American comedian still working his way up in the industry. Diana, already a star, believed she had found someone who truly understood her world. They had 2 sons, Mark in 1960 and Gary in 1962. For a while, life seemed good. But cracks started to show. Diana carried most of the financial burden, working non-stop to provide for their family in California. The pressure of being both a mother and the main source of income wore her down. Money troubles put a strain on their marriage. By 1964, things had fallen apart. Their divorce was finalized in 1967. Richard was granted custody of their sons, a decision that Diana reportedly agreed to so they could stay in Los Angeles. The split left Diana in a difficult position. She faced financial struggles, including bankruptcy, and had to rebuild her life once again. Losing daily contact with her children was painful, but she refused to give up. She reinvented herself, moving from film to television and cabaret. She found new opportunities and took back control of her career. Then she met Alan Lake. He was nearly 10 years younger, an actor with charm and energy that matched her own. Their connection was electric. Just 6 weeks after meeting, they married on November 23, 1968. Diana called Alan the love of her life. In 1969, they welcomed their son, Jason Dors Lake. Their marriage was filled with passion, but also challenges. Alan struggled with alcoholism, and their relationship had its rough moments. Despite this, Diana embraced her role as a wife and mother while continuing to work. Diana Dors knew how to survive in show business. The glamorous blonde bombshell image that had made her famous in the 1950s was starting to fade. By the 1970s, times had changed. Movie roles were harder to come by, and a new generation of actresses was taking over. Instead of fighting against it, she found a new path. Television became her second act, and Queenie's Castle was her big comeback. From 1970 to 1972, Dors played Queenie Shepherd, the tough but lovable head of a working-class family in Leeds. It was a far cry from the Hollywood-style films she had once starred in, but that was the point. Queenie was bold, sharp-tongued, and full of life. She was a mother who ran her household with a mix of humor and authority. Audiences loved her. They saw something real in her performance, something warm and familiar. The show ran for 3 seasons and made Dors a star all over again. This role proved that she was more than just a pretty face. She had always been talented, but now she had the chance to show it in a new way. She wasn't playing the glamorous blonde anymore. She was playing a real woman, someone people could recognize from their own lives. The success of Queenie's Castle opened doors for more television roles. She appeared in Z Cars, Dixon of Dock Green, and Just William, becoming a familiar presence in British households. At the same time, she was exploring another side of acting. Horror films were gaining popularity in the 1970s, and Dors saw an opportunity. She took a role in From Beyond the Grave, a 1974 anthology horror film. The movie featured 4 eerie stories, each with a different cast. Her part was small, but it showed she was willing to take risks. Horror was a world away from the glamorous films of her youth, but that didn't matter. She was proving that she could do more than just comedy or drama. Some mistakenly believe she had a role in Theater of Blood, a Vincent Price film from 1973. But that wasn't the case. Even without that credit, her work in horror films added another layer to her career. By this time, Dors had fully embraced her new identity as a television star. In 1980, she appeared on The Two Ronnies, one of the most popular comedy shows in Britain. It was a sketch comedy series known for its clever wordplay and unforgettable characters. Dors fit right in. She had always had great comedic timing, and this show gave her a chance to prove it once again. She didn't stop there. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, she was a regular guest on British game shows and panel shows. Joker's Wild, Blankety Blank, and Celebrity Squares all welcomed her with open arms. People loved seeing her. She was funny, sharp, and always ready with a quick remark. She had gone from a film star to a beloved entertainer, someone who could light up a room just by being herself. Her comedy talents extended beyond television. She became a well-known cabaret performer, entertaining audiences with quick-witted jokes and personal stories. This was something different from acting. On stage, there was no script, no director, just Dors and the audience. She knew how to work a crowd, how to make people laugh, and how to hold their attention. She even took her humor to radio. On BBC Radio 2's The Law Game, she once again showed her charm and wit. No matter the format, she had a way of connecting with people. That was the key to her success. She never disappeared from the public eye. She adapted, evolved, and kept finding new ways to entertain. Diana Dors lived a life of glamour, fame, and controversy. But her final years were marked by illness and tragedy. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, battled meningitis, and underwent multiple surgeries. On May 4, 1984, she collapsed at home with severe stomach pain. Hours later, she died at BMI Princess Margaret Hospital in Windsor. She was only 52. Her funeral took place a week later at the Sacred Heart Church in Sunningdale. She had converted to Catholicism in 1973, so the service reflected her faith. She was buried in Sunningdale Catholic Cemetery. But even in death, Diana's story was far from over. Before she passed away, she left behind a secret. It was a cryptic message, a hidden code that hinted at a fortune spread across multiple bank accounts in Europe. The idea seemed impossible at first. Diana had struggled with money for years. She had lived a lavish life, spending beyond her means, and even declared bankruptcy. Yet rumors of a hidden fortune began to spread. People started to wonder, had she secretly stashed away millions? Her past made the story even more intriguing. She had been linked to powerful and dangerous figures, including the Cray twins. Some believed she had used an ancient Masonic encryption system to hide her financial dealings. If true, that meant she had gone to extraordinary lengths to keep her wealth a secret. The mystery became public through her son, Mark Dawson. Before her death, Diana had given him a piece of paper with a code. She told him it was important, but she didn't give him the full message. The second half had been given to her husband, Alan Lake. Together, these two pieces would reveal the key to unlocking her hidden wealth. Then came another tragedy. 6 months after Diana died, Alan Lake took his own life. His death changed everything. The second half of the code was lost forever. Mark now had only half of the puzzle, making it impossible to fully decode his mother's message. Still, he refused to give up. He had grown up seeing his mother handle large amounts of cash. He remembered finding money hidden in cupboards at their home. He believed the fortune was real. Desperate for answers, he turned to cryptologists and forensic experts. They studied the code and identified it as a Vigenère cipher, a complex encryption method from the 16th century. The keyword needed to decode it was DMARYFLUCK, taken from Diana's full name, Diana Mary Fluck. Once they cracked the first part of the message, they found a list of surnames connected to towns across England and Wales. Names like Bowen, Stoke-on-Trent, and Richards, Leeds. This was a breakthrough, but there was a problem. The list only contained last names. Without the missing second half of the message, there were no first names, no account details, and no way to trace the money. Mark had come so close, yet the answer remained just out of reach. Some began to question if the fortune ever existed. Diana had always been a woman of mystery. Had she really hidden millions? Or was this her final illusion?